Deputy Speaker, I rise today to speak in support of the Heavy Vehicle National Law Amendment Bill 2012. This bill aims to reduce the red tape that is currently engulfing the heavy transport industry and thus increasing the industry's productivity and its ability to improve the promotion of safety. Madam Deputy Speaker, we must all remember that the heavy transport industry is a vital component of our government's four pillars economy, as it provides the connections upon which the four pillars rely. The provision of a national regulator will remove many of the stifling hurdles under the current system. Madam Deputy Speaker, this bill also allows the adoption of the national fatigue model, improving the consistency of compliance obligations required of both operators and drivers. This can only mean one thing: a safer working environment for our hard-working heavy vehicle drivers. This safer working environment will come about by the use of a risk classification approach to fatigue management and the streamlined access to advanced fatigue management for both operators and drivers. Madam Deputy Speaker, the issue of fatigue management among heavy vehicle drivers is one that's close to my heart. It stems from my days managing the Australian Radio Network station in Albury-Wodonga and working with the then Road Transport Forum and the New South Wales Road Traffic Authority, and partner radio stations in Wagga, Moree, Wangaratta, Shepparton, Emerald and Nowra to provide special coverage of some of Australia's busiest highways. Together, we developed the specialist radio program to specifically address the issue of driver fatigue, Truck Radio, a breakfast show hosted in the middle of the night by Caroline Hutchinson, which was designed to help keep drivers awake. And yes, we played plenty of AC/DC to make sure that we achieved that end. Caroline now anchors the Mix FM breakfast show up on the Sunshine Coast, which is home to our Attorney-General and member for Kawana, and of course, Madam Speaker, the Speaker of the House, Fiona Simpson. Madam Deputy Speaker, we should not underestimate the extent and the tragedy of some of the issues around driver fatigue. Aside from the obvious cost and the impact that that has on insurance cover and the actual operating costs of running vehicles, we should not underestimate the degree of human tragedy that comes as a result of driver fatigue. And it's not just the heavy vehicle drivers that suffer in most cases, it's also the unsuspecting vehicles, the drivers and members of unsuspecting vehicles. Madam Deputy Speaker, in those days of developing the radio program, I had the privilege of standing and speaking with many of the heavy vehicle drivers at the Marulan Heavy Vehicle Way Station just outside of Sydney at the start of the Hume. And it was incredible to hear some of their stories. Many private operators struggling to survive in such a competitive environment where there were so many cowboys operating and pushing the limits and on many occasions breaking the law to try and meet some of their deadlines. I also sat with drivers at truck stops in places like Gundawindi and Wangaratta, the truck stop down at the Tweed, and also Port Lincoln and Townsville, and talked with some of the drivers and got to hear firsthand some of the challenges that they faced in meeting those deadlines and delivering much-needed freight to some of the most remote and far-flung parts of our nation. The National Road Safety Strategy significantly takes a holistic approach to roads, speeds, vehicles, road users and their behaviour and performance, with a particular focus on monitoring and reporting. All these factors contribute to road fatalities and serious road crashes. I believe the National Road Safety Strategy will now be better supported by the adoption of the Heavy Vehicle National Law Amendment Bill. Madam Deputy Speaker, I've visited the Australian Truck Drivers Memorial at Tarcutta, and there you will see a memorial wall with the names of those drivers that have given their lives and made the ultimate sacrifice for their job. I've attended this memorial service on occasions. It's conducted each October, and I've stood with some of the families of those who've lost their dads on the nation's roads and highways. Madam Deputy Speaker, I leave you with these words: as long as we remember you, you will never really die, even if we see your names upon the wall. These were the words spoken by the wife of the late Slim Dusty, Joan McKean, at the Australian Truck Drivers Memorial last October to the gathered families and friends. And Madam Deputy Speaker, not that I'm particularly what you'd call a Slim Dusty fan, but I did have the great pleasure of hearing Slim sing those words at a family reunion in Wagga Wagga a few years ago, live in concert, and what an incredibly moving experience that was. And so, Madam Deputy Speaker, I believe that these changes are incredibly important. The Heavy Vehicle National Law Amendment Bill of 2012 is undoubtedly an important step forward in reducing the number of names that end up ultimately on this wall at Tarcutta, and so I commend the bill to the House.
I call the member for Chatsworth.